I knew something was wrong the night Natalie came home smelling like cedar and cologne that wasn't mine. It was 3 a.m. on a Thursday, and I'd been lying in our bed pretending to sleep for 2 hours. The garage door rumbled. Her heels clicked across the kitchen tile. Unsteady, confident, careless. I heard her pause at the bottom of the stairs, probably checking her reflection in the hallway mirror like she always did, making sure the mask was back in place. She slipped into bed without showering. That's what got me. Natalie Monroe, my wife of 6 years, the woman who wouldn't go to bed without her 10-step skincare routine, just climbed under the sheets in her clothes and turned away from me. I waited 5 minutes. Then I said it. Quiet. Testing. Long night? She didn't even flinch. Girls' night ran late. Rebecca wanted to try that new wine bar. At 3 in the morning? We're not married yet, Jason. Her voice was ice-cold, matter-of-fact. I can do whatever I want. I felt my jaw tighten. We'd been married for 6 years. 6. But she said it like we were still dating, like our vows were just suggestions she could ignore when convenient. I didn't respond. I just lay there in the dark, my woodworker's hands clenched into fists under the blanket, and I started counting. 1. She's lying. 2. This isn't the first time. 3. I'm going to find out everything. The thing about being a custom woodworker is you learn patience. You learn to measure twice, cut once. You learn that rushing ruins everything. So I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I just started watching. Natalie worked as a marketing manager for Prestige Realty, one of those boutique firms that handled million-dollar properties for people who thought they were better than everyone else. She'd been climbing the ladder for 3 years, ever since we moved to this town, a place that reminded me of every small American city Stephen King ever wrote about. Nice enough on the surface, rotten underneath. She started staying late at the office. Then came the weekend client meetings that required overnight trips. Her phone was always face down on the counter, always on silent. She'd gotten a second phone, a cheap prepaid thing she thought I didn't notice, and kept it in her car. I'm not stupid. I work with my hands, sure, but I've got a brain, and I know how to use it. I run a YouTube channel about home repairs and custom furniture, 30,000 subscribers. Not huge, but decent. It taught me how to research, how to dig, how to stay calm when everything inside me wanted to explode. So I started recording. Timestamps, locations. I put a small tracker, one I'd bought for my tool van after it got broken into last year, inside her gym bag. I checked her mileage against the places she claimed to visit. The numbers didn't match. Sophie, Natalie's younger sister, came over one Saturday afternoon while Natalie was supposedly at a strategy retreat. Sophie was quiet, always had been. She planned events for a living, weddings mostly, and she had this way of watching people that made you think she saw everything you were trying to hide. She sat at my workshop table while I sanded down a walnut dresser for a client. Didn't say much at first, just watched me work. You know, don't you? She finally asked. I didn't look up. Know what? About Natalie. My hands stopped moving. I set down the sandpaper and met her eyes. What about her? Sophie looked away toward the window. I've seen her, with him, Aiden Blake. He owns the firm she works for, or part of it anyway. Aiden Blake. The name tasted like rust in my mouth. I'd met him once at Natalie's company holiday party. Mid-30s, tailored suit, 2 white teeth, handshake like a vice trying to prove something. The kind of guy who thought money and charm made him untouchable. How long? I asked. 6 months, maybe more. Sophie's voice cracked a little. I'm sorry, Jason. I wanted to tell you sooner, but she's my sister and I... Don't apologize. I picked up the sandpaper again, focused on the grain of the wood. You're telling me now. That's enough. She watched me work for another minute. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I did know. I was going to burn their world down, carefully, methodically. The way I'd learned to build things, one piece at a time, until the structure was perfect. That night, I followed Natalie to her client dinner. She left the house at 7 wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, heels that made her 3 inches taller, makeup that took her an hour to apply. She kissed my cheek on her way out, her lips cold and distant, like kissing a stranger. "Don't wait up," she said. I gave it 10 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. The tracker led me to the Meridian, a high-end hotel downtown with a restaurant on the ground floor and rooms that cost more per night than I made in a week. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, Aiden Blake's silver Porsche pulled into the valet lane. He stepped out in a charcoal suit, checked his reflection in the car window, and walked inside like he owned the place. Probably felt like he did. Natalie met him in the lobby. I watched through the restaurant's glass walls as they sat at a corner table, leaning close, laughing at things that couldn't have been that amusing. She touched his hand. He touched her knee under the table. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just clarity. They finished dinner around 9, didn't leave. I watched them walk to the elevator together, watched the doors close, watched the numbers climb. 3, 5, 8, 12, top floor. I sat in my truck until midnight. Then I went home. The next morning, Natalie came down for breakfast like nothing had happened. She poured herself coffee, scrolled through her phone, asked me if I wanted eggs. "No," I said. "I'm good." She glanced at me, studying my face for cracks. "You okay? You look tired." "Didn't sleep well." "Maybe you should see a doctor. You've been stressed lately." I almost laughed. Instead, I just nodded and went to my workshop. That's when I started planning. I bought a small voice-activated recorder from an electronics store 2 towns over, paid cash, wore a baseball cap low over my face. I waited until Natalie left for work. Then I drove to the Meridian and found Aiden's Porsche in the parking garage. It took me 3 minutes to slip the recorder under the driver's seat, tucked against the base where he'd never notice. I'd learned a few things from YouTube. Funny how useful the internet can be when you need to learn something quietly. Then I waited. 3 days later, I retrieved the recorder. What I heard made my hands shake. Natalie's voice, breathy and excited. "We need to be more careful. Jason's been asking questions." Aiden's laugh. "Let him ask. What's he going to do? Build you a furniture intervention?" Her laugh, cold and vicious. "He's harmless. I'll handle him." "You sure? Because if he becomes a problem..." "He won't. Trust me. He's too soft to do anything about it." Soft. That word sat in my gut like a stone. I made copies of the recording, 3 of them, stored them in different places. Then I started thinking bigger. Sophie called me that weekend. "Can we meet? Somewhere Natalie won't see us?" We met at a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place with checkered floors and waitresses who called you honey. She slid into the booth across from me, looking nervous. "I need to tell you something," she said. "About the wedding." "What wedding?" "Natalie's planning one, with Aiden." Sophie pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. A venue booking confirmation. October 15th, 3 months away. "She's still married to me," I said quietly. "She's planning to file for separation next month. She thinks you'll just sign whatever she puts in front of you." I stared at the screenshot, felt something dark and final settle over me. "Does she think I'm that stupid?" Sophie shook her head. "She thinks you're that kind. Kind. Soft. Harmless." I looked at Sophie, really looked at her. Saw the anger in her eyes, the resentment she'd been carrying. "Why are you helping me?" "Because she's been treating me like garbage for years. Because she thinks she's better than everyone. Because I'm tired of watching her get everything she wants while stepping on people who care about her." She paused. "And because you don't deserve this." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Thank you. What are you going to do?" I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I'm going to teach her what happens when you underestimate someone." That night, I sat in my workshop and planned every detail. No violence, no broken laws I couldn't justify, just cold, calculated destruction. Natalie wanted a separation. She'd get one, but she wasn't getting the house. She wasn't getting my silence. And she sure as hell wasn't getting her fairy tale ending with Aiden Blake. I pulled out my phone and texted Sophie. "I need your help with something. Are you in?" Her response came 30 seconds later. "All the way." I set the phone down and looked at the half-finished dresser in front of me. Walnut. Beautiful grain. Strong enough to last generations if you built it right. Revenge was like woodworking, I realized. You just had to measure carefully, stay patient, and make every cut count. The following week, Natalie started pushing harder. She came home Thursday night with a folder full of papers and dropped them on the kitchen counter, like she was serving me a warrant. I was making dinner, spaghetti, nothing fancy, and she didn't even acknowledge the smell of garlic or the effort, just stood there with her arms crossed, waiting for me to notice. "What's this?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. "Separation agreement. My lawyer drew it up." I picked up the folder, flipped through it. She wanted the house, half my retirement account, and monthly support payments for 2 years. In exchange, I'd get my truck and my tools. Generous. "You already have a lawyer," I said. Not a question. "Jason, let's not make this harder than it has to be. We both know this isn't working anymore." I looked at her. She was wearing her work clothes still. Gray blazer, white blouse, black slacks. Hair pulled back. The same woman I'd married, except I didn't recognize her anymore. Or maybe I just finally saw her clearly. "Why?" I asked. "Why what? Why now? Why like this?" She sighed, like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. "Because we've grown apart. Because I need more than this. Because you're still the same person you were 6 years ago, and I'm not." "You're right," I said. "You're not." Something flickered across her face. Annoyance, maybe. Or guilt. Hard to tell. "Just look over the papers, sign them, we can both move on." She left the kitchen. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the bedroom door closing. I looked down at the separation agreement, felt my jaw clench. Then I smiled. She thought I'd just sign. Thought I was too soft, too kind, too harmless to fight back. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I called in sick to my part-time carpentry gig and spent the day following Natalie's schedule. I knew her routines better than she thought. Coffee at 8, office by 9, lunch meeting at noon. Except today, her lunch meeting was at the Meridian again. I parked 3 blocks away and walked. Wore different clothes than usual. Jeans, a dark jacket, sunglasses. Nothing memorable. Aiden's Porsche was already there. I waited across the street, watching the entrance. They came out together at 1:30. Natalie was laughing at something he'd said, her hand on his arm. He leaned down and kissed her. Not a quick peck. A real, full-on, I own you kind of thing. I took a picture, then another, then a short video. They separated and headed toward the parking garage. I followed at a distance, keeping out of sight. When they reached his car, I ducked behind a concrete pillar and listened. "Tonight?" Aiden asked. "I can't. Jason's home. He's been weird lately." "So tell him you're working late. You've done it before." "I will. Just not tonight. Tomorrow." "Fine. But we need to move faster on this separation thing. I'm tired of sneaking around." "It's handled. He'll sign." Aiden kissed her again. "Good. Because I'm not waiting much longer." They drove off separately. I stood there for a minute, letting it sink in. Not the affair, I already knew about that, but hearing it so casually, so confidently, like I was just an obstacle to remove. That night, I went back to the Meridian. Waited until midnight. Then I walked into the parking garage wearing gloves. Aiden's Porsche was on the 3rd level, parked away from other cars like he was worried someone might scratch his precious paint job. I pulled out a small utility knife, one I used for trimming veneer, and crouched next to the driver's side door. I didn't slash his tires. Too obvious. Too juvenile. Instead, I scratched 4 words into the paint along the passenger side, deep enough to reach the metal underneath. She's still married. Then I walked away. Sophie met me at the diner again Saturday morning. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept much. Natalie asked me to help plan the wedding, she said. She wants me to be her maid of honor. I raised an eyebrow. What did you say? I said yes, because if I said no, she'd get suspicious. Sophie leaned forward. Jason, she's completely delusional. She actually thinks you're going to just disappear quietly. She's already picking out flowers and cake flavors. Good, I said. Let her plan. Let her think everything's going her way. And then what? I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken. Natalie and Aiden kissing outside the Meridian. Timestamps, GPS coordinates, everything documented. Sophie's eyes widened. You're building a case. I'm building leverage. I put the phone away. She wants the house? Fine. But I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who she is before she gets anything. What do you need from me? Keep playing along. Act supportive. And if you hear anything at all about their plans, you tell me. She nodded. There's something else. Natalie's been talking about you. To her friends, to people at work. She's been telling everyone you're controlling, that you've been emotionally distant, that you're the reason the relationship failed. My hands tightened around my coffee mug. She's rewriting history. She's covering her tracks. If anyone asks why she left, she's got a story ready. You're the bad guy. She's the victim. I felt that cold, sharp clarity again, the kind that cuts through everything else. Not for long, I said. That afternoon, I started phase 2. I'd been running my YouTube channel for 3 years, home repair tutorials, woodworking projects, DIY advice. It wasn't huge, but I had a loyal following. People trusted me, thought I was genuine. I filmed a new video in my workshop, didn't mention Natalie by name, didn't mention the affair, just talked about a personal project I was working on, something that required patience, precision, and the willingness to see it through to the end. Sometimes, I told the camera, you invest years into something, and you think it's solid, you think you built it right, but then you realize the foundation was rotted from the start. And when that happens, you've got 2 choices. You can try to patch it and pretend everything's fine, or you can tear it down and start over. I paused, looked directly into the lens. I'm not much for patching anymore. The video got twice the views I normally received. Comments poured in, people asking if I was okay, offering support, sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery. I didn't respond to any of them. Just let it sit there, building momentum. Natalie noticed. What was that video about? She asked Sunday night, her tone sharp. Just talking about a project. It sounded personal. I shrugged. Maybe it was. She stared at me, trying to read my face. I kept it neutral. After a moment, she shook her head and walked away. She was starting to realize I wasn't playing along anymore, but she didn't understand the game yet. Monday morning, I went to see Cole Wagner. Cole was a detective with the local police department. We'd gone to high school together, not close friends, but friendly enough. He was the kind of cop who liked feeling important, liked being in the know. Not the sharpest, but useful if you knew how to work him. I found him at a coffee shop near the station. He grinned when he saw me. Jason Monroe, long time, man. What's up? I sat down across from him. I need a favor. What kind of favor? The kind where you scare someone without actually doing anything. Cole's grin widened. I'm listening. I told him about Aiden Blake, didn't mention the affair, just said Aiden had been harassing Natalie at work, making her uncomfortable, and I wanted him to back off. You want me to have a chat with him? Cole asked. Just a friendly conversation. Let him know someone's watching. Cole nodded slowly. I can do that, but you owe me a beer. Deal. 2 days later, Cole pulled Aiden over for a routine traffic stop. Checked his license, asked him a few questions, Mentioned he'd heard some complaints about inappropriate workplace behavior. Nothing official, just enough to make Aiden sweat. Sophie called me that night, laughing so hard she could barely talk. "Aiden's freaking out," she said. "He thinks someone reported him to the cops. He's been calling Natalie nonstop." "Good," I said. "Let him panic." "What's next?" I looked at the separation papers sitting on my desk, thought about Natalie's smug confidence, Aiden's entitled arrogance. "Now," I said, "we start tearing down the foundation." Natalie wanted me to sign the papers by the end of the month. She reminded me every few days, each time with a little more edge in her voice. "Jason, this doesn't have to be complicated," she'd say. "Just sign, and we can both move on." I'd nod. Tell her I was thinking about it. Let her believe I was still the same harmless guy who'd let her walk all over him for months. Meanwhile, I was building. Aiden Blake's real estate firm, Prestige Realty, was hosting a luxury property expo at the convention center downtown. Big event. Lots of high-net-worth clients, photographers, media coverage, the works. Aiden was the keynote speaker, talking about innovative marketing strategies and building client trust. The irony wasn't lost on me. I registered as a potential buyer under a fake name, used a burner email, paid the entry fee in cash. Sophie helped me put together a believable backstory. I was a contractor looking to invest in rental properties, interested in upscale developments, willing to spend serious money. The expo was on a Saturday. I dressed the part, nice jeans, button-up shirt, sport coat. Looked like money without trying too hard. The convention center was packed. Booths everywhere, glossy brochures, salespeople with perfect teeth and empty promises. I walked through slowly, taking it all in until I found Prestige Realty's booth near the main stage. Aiden was there, holding court with a group of potential clients. Natalie stood next to him, playing the role of supportive colleague. She looked radiant. Red dress, heels, hair, and makeup flawless. The mask was perfect. I waited until Aiden stepped away to take a phone call. Then I approached one of the junior associates at the booth. "Hi," I said, smiling. "I'm looking into investment properties. I heard Aiden Blake is the guy to talk to." The associate lit up. "Absolutely. Let me grab him for you." She waved Aiden over. He finished his call and walked toward me, hand extended, smile wide. "Aiden Blake. Pleasure to meet you." I shook his hand. Firm grip, looked him in the eye. "Jason. Jason Monroe." His smile faltered, just for a second. He recovered quickly, but I saw it. "Monroe," he repeated. "Have we met before?" "Not officially, but I think you know my wife, Natalie." The color drained from his face. He glanced toward Natalie, who was still talking to clients on the other side of the booth. She hadn't noticed me yet. Aiden cleared his throat. "I work with Natalie, yeah. She's a great asset to the team." "I'm sure she is." I kept my voice casual, friendly. "Actually, I wanted to ask you about something. See, I've been thinking about investing in property, but I'm a little concerned about working with firms that don't have strong ethical standards. You know what I mean?" He blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Ethics, integrity, trust. Those things matter to me." I leaned in slightly. "For example, I'd never work with someone who sleeps with married women. That kind of behavior makes me question their judgment, don't you think?" Aiden's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do." I smiled. "But hey, no hard feelings. Just thought I'd let you know where I stand." I turned and walked away before he could respond. Behind me, I heard him call Natalie's name, his voice tight and urgent. I didn't look back. The real show started 10 minutes later. I'd planted someone in the audience, a guy I'd met through my YouTube channel, an actor who owed me a favor. His job was simple. During Aiden's keynote speech, stand up and ask a very specific question. Aiden took the stage right on schedule, started his presentation with slides about market trends, investment opportunities, blah, blah, blah. The audience was half listening, half scrolling through their phones. Then my guy stood up. "Mr. Blake, I have a question." Aiden paused. "Sure, go ahead." "How do you reconcile your company's focus on building client trust when you're actively involved in an inappropriate relationship with a married employee? Doesn't that create a conflict of interest?" The room went silent. Cameras turned. People started whispering. Aiden's face went red. That's completely inappropriate. This is a professional event. So you're denying it?" "I'm not answering questions about my personal life." "Interesting." My guy sat down, looking satisfied. The damage was done. The whispers grew louder. Phones came out. People started typing, searching, connecting dots. Natalie rushed to the stage, trying to salvage the situation. She grabbed the microphone from Aiden, her smile forced and brittle. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep this focused on the properties we're here to discuss. If anyone has questions about our listings, I'd be happy to—" Someone in the back shouted, "Are you the married employee he's involved with?" Her smile cracked. She looked at Aiden, then at the crowd, then at the cameras still recording. No, that's ridiculous." But her voice wavered, and in that moment, everyone could see the truth. I left before security started asking questions, walked out into the parking lot, got in my truck, and drove home. By the time I got there, the video was already online. Someone had posted it to social media with the caption, "Real estate exec confronted about affair at luxury expo." It had 15,000 views in the first hour. Sophie texted me, "Holy crap, Jason. What did you do?" I texted back, "Phase 3. That night, Natalie came home shaking with rage. She slammed the door, threw her purse on the counter, and stormed into the living room where I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV. "Was that you?" she demanded. I looked up, calm. "Was what me?" "Don't play stupid. That guy at the expo. Did you put him up to that?" "I have no idea what you're talking about. Jason, I swear to God." "You swear to God what?" I stood up, met her eyes. "You'll leave me? You're already doing that. You'll take everything? You're already trying. What exactly do you think you can threaten me with, Natalie?" She stared at me, her chest heaving. "You're making a huge mistake." "No." I stepped closer. "The mistake was thinking I wouldn't fight back." She opened her mouth, then closed it, turned, and walked upstairs without another word. I sat back down on the couch, picked up my phone. The video had 50,000 views now. Sophie sent me another text. "She's panicking. Keep going." I smiled. The next day, I got an email from Aiden's lawyer. Cease and desist, harassment, defamation, legal action if I didn't stop. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, a guy I'd hired quietly a week earlier, and asked him to handle it. "They've got nothing," he told me over the phone. "You didn't make any false statements. You didn't harass anyone. You asked a question at a public event. That's protected speech." "Good," I said, "because I'm not stopping." That weekend, Sophie came over. We sat in my workshop while I finished sanding a cherry coffee table for a client. "Natalie's losing it," Sophie said. "She's been calling me constantly, asking if I know what you're planning. I told her I had no idea." "Does she believe you?" "I don't think so, but she's too distracted to push it." Sophie paused. "She also told me she's moving the wedding up. She wants to do it next month instead of October." I looked up from the table. "Why?" "Because she thinks if she marries Aiden quickly, it'll make everything go away. Like people will forget she was cheating on you." I set down the sandpaper. "She's delusional. She's desperate." Sophie met my eyes. "What are you going to do?" I thought about the wedding, thought about Natalie in a white dress, pretending to be innocent, pretending she hadn't destroyed our marriage for a man who only wanted her because she was convenient. "I'm going to make sure that wedding never happens," I said. "But first, I need you to do something for me." "What?" I pulled out my phone and opened a new message. I need you to send her this text, from your phone. Make it sound like you're excited to help her plan. Sophie read the message. Her eyes widened. Then she smiled. This is brutal, she said. Good. She sent the text. A minute later, Natalie responded with a string of heart emojis. I looked at Sophie. You ready for this? She nodded. Let's take her down. The wedding was scheduled for September 23rd, a month away. Natalie threw herself into planning with manic energy, convinced that a perfect ceremony would somehow erase the mess she'd made. Sophie played her part beautifully. She helped Natalie pick flowers, taste cakes, choose table settings. She listened to Natalie's complaints about me, nodded sympathetically, and reported everything back to me. She's telling people you're making the separation difficult, Sophie said one afternoon. She's painting herself as the victim who just wants to move on, and you're the bitter ex who won't let go. Let her talk, I said. Words don't mean anything when you've got proof. And I had proof. Recordings, photos, timestamps, financial records showing Natalie had been funneling money into a separate account for months, preparing to leave. I'd compiled everything into a folder, digital and physical, ready to deploy when the moment was right. The moment came 2 weeks before the wedding. Natalie filed for separation officially. Her lawyer served me papers at my workshop, right in front of a client I was meeting with. Professional, classy. I signed them without reading. The lawyer looked surprised. You're not going to review these with your attorney first? He asked. Nope, I said. She wants out. I'm not going to stop her. He left, looking confused. Natalie probably expected me to fight, to drag things out, to make her life difficult. Instead, I gave her exactly what she wanted. 2 days later, I listed the house for sale, put it on the market with a different firm, not Prestige Realty, and priced it aggressively to move fast. Natalie found out when one of her co-workers saw the listing online. She called me, screaming, "You can't sell the house. That's marital property." I can, I said calmly. And I am. You wanted the separation. You're getting it. Half the proceeds will go to you, just like you asked. Jason, this is insane. No. What's insane is thinking you could cheat on me, humiliate me, take everything I built, and I'd just sit here and take it. I paused. The house sells next week. Deal with it. She hung up. I smiled. The house sold in 5 days, cash offer, closed fast. Natalie got her half, minus the mortgage, minus the equity I'd put in before we were married, minus a few other legal deductions my lawyer found. She ended up with about 30% of what she thought she'd get. I took my share and opened a new account. Separate, untouchable. Then I started the final phase. September 22nd, the day before the wedding. I sent Natalie a text at 6 a.m. Enjoy your big day tomorrow, I'll be on my honeymoon. She called immediately. I didn't answer. She texted, "What are you talking about?" I didn't respond. She called again, and again. I blocked her number. By noon, she was frantic. Sophie told me Natalie had been calling everyone. Friends, family, vendors, trying to figure out what I meant. I waited until evening. Then I sent a second text from a burner phone. "I'm on my honeymoon with your sister." The silence that followed was beautiful. Sophie had agreed to the plan a week earlier. We'd talked it through, weighed the consequences, and she'd made the choice on her own. "I want her to feel what it's like," Sophie had said. To be betrayed by someone she trusted. To realize she's not in control. We didn't actually sleep together. That wasn't the point. The point was making Natalie believe we had. Making her question everything. Making her spiral. And it worked. Sophie sent me screenshots of Natalie's messages. "How could you do this to me? You're my sister." Sophie responded, "You did it to Jason. Why is it different when it's you?" Natalie tried calling me again. I didn't answer, just let her sit with it. The next morning, September 23rd, the day of the wedding, I showed up at the venue. It was a vineyard outside town, expensive, beautiful, white chairs arranged in perfect rows, flowers everywhere, string lights hanging from the trees. Natalie's dream setting. I arrived early before most of the guests, walked right past the coordinator who tried to stop me. "Sir, this is a private event." "I know," I said. "I'm the bride's husband." I found Aiden in the groom's suite, adjusting his tie in the mirror. He saw me in the reflection and froze. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Just wanted to give you a wedding gift." I pulled out an envelope and tossed it on the table. He picked it up, opened it. Inside were printed copies of the recordings I'd made, transcripts of his and Natalie's conversations, timestamps, photos, everything. His face went pale. "You can't." "I already did." I stepped closer. "And just so you know, I sent copies to your business partners, your investors, and the real estate licensing board. You're done." "You're bluffing." I smiled. "Check your email." He pulled out his phone. Checked. I watched his expression crumble. "You destroyed me," he whispered. "No," I said. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone knew about it." I walked out before he could respond, headed toward the bridal suite. Natalie was in there, surrounded by bridesmaids, hair and makeup perfect, white dress shimmering in the light. She saw me through the window, and her face twisted with rage. She threw open the door. "Get out!" "I just wanted to drop something off." I handed her a folder. "Copies of everything, photos, recordings, financial records. Thought you might want to explain them to your guests before they start asking questions." She opened the folder. Her hands started shaking. "Jason, you can't do this." "I already did." I leaned in close. "You said we weren't married yet, so you could do whatever you wanted, remember? Well, now you're getting exactly what you asked for. Freedom." I turned and walked down the hallway. Behind me, I heard her scream. Guests were starting to arrive. I walked past them, got in my truck, and drove to Aiden's house. His Porsche was parked in the driveway. I'd brought a can of spray paint. Red. I wrote across the side of his car, "Not your wife." Then I drove away. By the time I got home, my phone was flooded with messages. Friends, family, people I hadn't talked to in years, all asking what the hell was going on. I ignored them all except one. "Sophie, she's losing it. The wedding's off. Aiden left. You won." I texted back, "Not yet." The wedding didn't happen. Natalie tried to hold it together for about an hour, smiling at guests, pretending everything was fine. But Aiden never showed up. He'd left the venue right after I confronted him, drove straight to his lawyer's office, and started trying to contain the damage. By evening, the guests were gone. The vendors were packing up. Natalie sat alone in the bridal suite, still in her wedding dress, mascara streaked down her face. Sophie sent me a photo. I didn't feel sorry for her. The next week, the fallout started. Prestige Realty launched an internal investigation into Aiden's conduct. The Real Estate Licensing Board opened a formal inquiry based on the evidence I'd sent them: violations of professional ethics, conflicts of interest, misuse of company resources. Aiden's business partners started distancing themselves publicly. Natalie got pulled into it too. HR called her in for questioning. She tried to deny everything, but the recordings I'd provided made that impossible. Within a week, she was on administrative leave pending review. Translation: fired without officially being fired yet. I watched it all unfold from a distance, kept my head down, worked on my carpentry projects, posted a few videos to my YouTube channel. People kept asking if I was okay. I told them I was fine. Better than fine, actually, because I wasn't done yet. Aiden still had his house, his cars. His reputation was damaged, but he hadn't lost everything. So I decided to take the last thing he valued, his ego. I found out through Sophie that Aiden was trying to salvage a major deal, a luxury development project worth millions. He'd been courting investors for months, and the final pitch meeting was scheduled for the following Friday. I registered as a potential investor, used a shell company I'd set up, legitimate, legal, untraceable to me directly. Paid the entry fee, got a seat at the table. The meeting was at a high-end restaurant downtown. Private room, expensive wine, Aiden in a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He didn't recognize me at first. I'd grown a beard, wore glasses, dressed differently. Introduced myself as James Mitchell, a contractor looking to diversify into real estate investment. Aiden gave his pitch, talked about projected returns, market analysis, architectural plans. He was good, confident, almost made you forget he was a cheater and a fraud. When he finished, I raised my hand. "I have a question," I said. Aiden smiled. "Of course. How do you plan to manage this project when your business license is under review by the state board?" His smile faltered. It's a minor issue. A misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I heard it involves ethics violations, inappropriate relationships with employees, conflicts of interest. I leaned forward. That doesn't sound minor to me. The other investors started murmuring, pulling out their phones, searching. Aiden's face went red. "Who are you?" I took off my glasses, let him see my face clearly. His eyes widened. Yeah, me." I stood up. "Gentlemen, I'd recommend you do your due diligence before investing a single dollar with this man, because he's not just unethical, he's careless, and careless people lose other people's money." I walked out. Behind me, I heard the investors start grilling Aiden with questions he couldn't answer. The deal fell apart that night. By Monday, Aiden's business partners had forced him out of the company entirely. Natalie called me Tuesday morning, first time we'd spoken since the wedding disaster. "Are you happy now?" Her voice was raw, broken. "Not particularly," I said, "but I'm satisfied." "You destroyed everything. My career, my relationship, my future." "No, you destroyed it. I just made sure people knew the truth." "Jason, please." "Please what? Forgive you? Let you walk away like nothing happened?" I laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "You had 6 years to treat me with respect. You chose not to. So now you get to live with the consequences." "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." I paused. "Don't call me again. We're done." I hung up. Sophie came over that evening. We sat in my workshop, drinking beer, watching the sun set through the open garage door. "Natalie's moving out of state," Sophie said. "She got a job offer in another city, entry level, basically starting over." "Good for her." Sophie looked at me. "Do you feel bad? At all?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "She made her choices. I just made sure they mattered." Sophie nodded. "For what it's worth, I think she deserved it." She did. We sat in silence for a while. Then Sophie said, "What about you? What's next?" I looked around the workshop, the tools I'd collected over the years, the half-finished projects waiting for attention, the life I'd built with my own hands. "I keep building," I said. "That's what I do." Sophie smiled. "Need any help?" "Always." The next day, I got a message from one of my YouTube subscribers. Someone had posted the video from the expo, the one where Aiden got confronted, on a larger platform. It had gone viral. 3 million views. People were dissecting it, analyzing it, turning it into memes. A local news blog picked it up. Ran a story about the real estate executive caught in a public affair scandal. Interviewed people who knew Aiden and Natalie, painted them as entitled, careless, arrogant. I didn't comment. Didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a production company. They wanted to turn the whole thing into a documentary, a modern tale of betrayal and revenge. I told them no. Some stories don't need to be sold, they just need to be lived. A month after that, I ran into Cole Wagner at the hardware store. He grinned when he saw me. Hey, man, I heard about everything. Wild stuff. Yeah. For what it's worth, I think you handled it well. Better than I would have. Thanks, Cole. He clapped me on the shoulder. You ever need anything? Let me know. I will. I walked out of the store, got in my truck, and drove home. The house I'd bought after selling the old one, smaller, simpler, mine. I sat in the driveway for a minute, looking at it. Thought about Natalie. Thought about Aiden. Thought about everything they'd tried to take from me. And then I smiled. Because in the end, they didn't take anything. They just showed me what I was capable of when I stopped being soft, stopped being kind, stopped being harmless. I walked inside, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat down at my computer. Opened a new video project. The title, Starting Over, How to Rebuild When Everything Falls Apart. I hit record. Hey everyone, Jason here. So, a lot of you have been asking what I've been up to lately. Long story short, I went through a separation. It wasn't pretty, but I learned something important. You don't owe kindness to people who don't deserve it. You don't owe silence to people who lie. And you definitely don't owe forgiveness to people who never asked for it. I paused, looked into the camera. Someone once told me I was too soft to fight back. Turns out they were wrong. And now I'm just getting started. I ended the recording, uploaded it, watched the view count climb. 3 days later, a reporter reached out, wanted to do a feature on the carpenter who exposed a real estate scandal. I agreed. Did the interview. Told my side of the story, not for revenge, not for attention, but because people needed to know that sometimes the good guy doesn't have to stay quiet. The article went live on a Friday. By Monday, my YouTube channel had gained 20,000 new subscribers. People started reaching out, sharing their own stories of betrayal, of fighting back, of refusing to be victims. I responded to as many as I could, offered advice, shared what I'd learned, and somewhere in all of it, I realized something. Natalie and Aiden didn't just lose. They gave me something I'd never had before. A voice, a platform, a purpose. I stood in my workshop that night, looking at the tools hanging on the wall. Remembered the guy I used to be, the one who stayed quiet, who avoided conflict, who let people walk all over him because he thought that's what good people did. That guy was gone. In his place was someone stronger, someone who understood that kindness without boundaries is just weakness in disguise, someone who knew that